Well, I'm excited to jump into part 2 of our For Them initiative. And I want to start today talking about home. I don't know if you've got one of these in front of your house, but in a lot of ways, something like this really for us symbolizes home, that welcome mat that we have out front. And today I want to talk about the subject of home. What is home? When we talk about home, how do we feel about home? And I want to talk in particular about our definition of home and share with you a little bit of what Jesus has to say about home. I grew up as a kid next door to my grandparents. They had a bungalow next door, and it was kind of an extension of our house, which really was a gift. And in their 90s, my grandparents actually passed away 3 months apart. And now my sister actually lives in what used to be my grandparents' house. And when I go there to visit my sister, it feels like my grandparents' house, but it doesn't really feel like their home. It doesn't feel like home the way it used to. And the reason is because my grandparents aren't there. It's the house they used to live in, but it isn't home. When I have a difficult day, maybe I've walked with somebody through something really difficult, I've made a decision that hasn't gone very well, or maybe I've just had a bad day, and I think, man, I just want to get home. Well, what do I mean by get home? I don't mean I need to get in my house. What I really mean is I really want to see my wife, Leslie, and I really want to talk to her about it and share it with her. You know, when I'm at my house and my family isn't there, maybe they're away to volleyball tournament or whatever it might be, it's just me in the house. It doesn't really feel like home. I would argue that home isn't a place, it's really, in some ways, a person. That it's people that are home. It's people that make us feel about home, that feel like we're at home. I would say the people who care about you most, in some ways, are the people you call home. I've shared with you before, I have a group of 5 friends. We're texting this morning, and whenever I hang out with them, I just get to relax. And they know my challenges, they know my faults, they know the things that I'm celebrating. And when I hang out with them, you know, I'm not Pastor Jeff, I'm just Jeff, and I just hang out. And you know what? They just feel like home. You've got people like that in your own life. The people who you care about, who care about you the most, in some ways are like home to you. And last week, I shared with you out of Luke 15, and we've been looking at God's heart. And looking at what Luke 15, where Jesus is teaching, what it teaches us about the heart of God and what really moves his heart and what he's passionate about and what he's focused on, because we want to align our heart with God's heart. And last week I shared with you, he was hanging out with and teaching, and there are a bunch of notorious sinners, the scripture says, and tax collectors who are basically traitors, people who you wouldn't want to hang out with, or at least you wouldn't want to be associated with. And the religious leaders are there, and they're saying to Jesus, why are you hanging out with these people? You know, they don't believe anything that you believe. Their lives aren't following God's in any way. They wouldn't find themselves in temple. These are not the kind of people, Jesus, that you should be hanging out with. And Jesus wants to show them God's heart. And last week I shared with you a story he told about this crazy shepherd who leaves the 99 sheep to go out there to find just one. And he says in that passage we finished last week, he says, count on it. There's more joy in heaven over one sinner's rescued life than over 99 good people in need of no rescue. That when it comes to who Jesus is and the heart of God the Father, man, he is searching and he's seeking and he is looking for people who are feeling like, man, I need forgiveness. For those of us who are lost, those of us in dark places, for those who don't know him, he so desperately, God wants to know and have a relationship with them that he's out there seeking and searching. But then later on in the passage, Jesus wants to give them a little more insight. And it's all a little bit around this concept of God as a father and home. And this is what it says. It says to illustrate the point further, Jesus told them this story. He says, a man had 2 sons. The younger son told his father, I want my share of your estate now before you die. Any parents out there, how would that feel? Right? Son comes up. You know, you're not dead yet. Kind of wish you were because I need the cash. but if I could have it now, that would be helpful. And it says, so his father agrees to divide his wealth between his sons. He says, okay, you want your freedom? You want gifts? You want me to give you these things that you actually really don't deserve? I'm going to give them to you. It says a few days later, this younger son packed all his belongings. He moves to a distant land, and there, what does he do with his freedom? What does he do with his wealth? It says there he wasted all his money in wild living. I don't know what wild living is, but you fill in the blank. And then it says, about the time his money ran out, a great famine swept over the land, and he began to starve. Now, he persuaded a local farmer to hire him, and the man sent him into his fields to feed the pigs. Now, you got to remember, this is a Jewish audience, so this is not a very kosher job, right? Feeding the pigs. And it says the man became so hungry that the young man became so hungry that even the pods he was feeding the pigs looked good to him, but no one gave him anything. This guy is alone. He is in a real dark place. He is all by himself at rock bottom. In fact, it says, when he finally came to his senses, one translation says, when he finally came to the end of himself. You ever felt that way? I'm at the end of myself. I can't. It says, he said to himself, at home, even the hired servants have food enough to spare, and here I am, I'm dying of hunger. He says, I know what I'm going to do. He says, I will go home to my house. He actually doesn't say that. He doesn't say, I'll go home to the family farm. He doesn't say that. He doesn't say, well, I'll go home to my bedroom. Hopefully dad still has it. He doesn't say that. He says, I will go home to my Father. Home is a person. And he says, I'm going to say to my dad. And then you can see him rehearsing this in the mirror. You ever rehearse a speech in the mirror? Maybe some of you sing into the hairbrush. He says, Father, I've sinned against both heaven and you, and I'm no longer worthy of being called your son. Please take me on as your hired servant. Father, I have sinned against you. I've sinned against both heaven and earth and you, and I'm no longer worthy to be called your son. Please take me on as your servant. Father, I've sinned, but I got to get this down. And it says, so he returned home to his father. And you got to think of the tension of the moment, that as he's walking down the road, what does he think his dad is going to say? Well, told you so. You got all you're going to get. You know, you turned your back on me and wished I was dead, so deal with it. Time to start adulting. Is that what he's going to say? That's what he's wondering. What is going to happen when I give my speech? It says, well, he was still a long way off. His father saw him coming. His father is looking. We're back to this theme of the father is searching and seeing and looking. The father is always looking for his lost son. And it says, filled with love and compassion, he ran to his son, which would have been an undignified thing for him to do in that culture. And he embraced him, and he kissed him. And you just see this scene. I just can't imagine the relief of the son. And some of you are very familiar with this passage, and here's something I never saw before. When his father embraced him, he wasn't in the house yet, but he was already home. He was already home in the arms of his father. The interesting thing about the Christian faith is we can get mixed up because we think the Christian faith is about getting to heaven. But the Christian faith isn't about a destination, it's about a person. If you're a follower of Jesus, you want to know what's going to make heaven great? That Jesus is there. And God the Father is there. Not what kind of house you're going to live in and what kind of heaven car you're going to drive or however that works. It's not about that. It's not about the house. It's not about the car. It's not about a mansion. It's like all of that is going to be nothing compared to the fact that Jesus is going to be there. God the Father is going to be there, and he's going to embrace you in that moment. That the God you can have a relationship today is a God that you will have a relationship there, and a Jesus who you will see face to face. It's not about a destination. It's about a person. Home is a person. And then you see, it says his son said to him, now it's speech time, right? They'd hug for a while, then pat, 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 and then they separated. And then the son says to him, Father, I've sinned against both heaven and you, and I'm no longer worthy of being called your son. And the father just cuts him off. But it says, but his father, he doesn't even get to the take me on as a hired servant. No time for that. It says, but his father said to the servants, quick, bring the finest robe in the house, put it on him, get a ring for his finger, and sandals for his feet. You know what I love about this? He's not saying, hey, do up his bedroom, get his bedroom ready, and get his car, get the cover off the car and bring it out. He's not restoring him to the house. He's restoring him to the family. He's restoring him to home. And he says, and kill the calf we have been fattening. We must celebrate with a feast, for this son of mine was dead and now returned to life. He was lost and now he is found. And so the party began. Let's party. It's time. Get out the fattened calf. I mean, I don't even know what that means, but I don't know how many parties you have a fattened calf at, but here they did. Let's party. My son is found. I mean, we have to celebrate this. Now, when you hear this story, there's part of you that goes, man, this is such a moving, powerful story, but, family can't be all good, right? You got a family, right? It doesn't always go like this. There's some dysfunction in all our families, right? Well, there is in this one too. Because then we read this. Meanwhile, the older son was in the fields working. And when he returned home, he heard music and he heard dancing in the house, right? So he's out there in the field and he goes, right? He hears it. And he's like, is that fattened calf I smell, right? And he asked one of the servants what was going on. And the servant says, your brother is back. Your brother is back, he's told, and your father has killed the fattened calf. So much about the fattened calf, honestly. We are celebrating because of his safe return. And the question I've always wondered, why isn't the older brother looking for his lost brother? If this broke his dad's heart, why isn't he out there on the road? Why isn't he in the field of pigs with his brother saying, you got to get home. You can't be out here. Dad's heart is broken for you. At the very least, if dad's on the porch every day looking for his lost son, why isn't the older brother looking for the son with him? Why is he out in some back field rather than helping find his brother? It says the older brother was angry and he wouldn't go in. And his father came out and he begged him, you got to come. But he replied, all these years I've slaved for you and never once refused to do a single thing you told me to. And in all that time, you never gave me even one young goat for a feast with my friends. Yet, when this son of yours comes back after squandering your money on prostitutes, you celebrate by killing the fattened calf. We're back to the fattened calf. You celebrate by killing the fattened calf. What's he saying? He's saying, Dad, when is this going to be about me? I want it to be about me. I know my brother's lost, but I want this to be about me. I know he was out there and we didn't know where he was, but I want it to be about me. I think we do this. In particular, those of us who are followers of Jesus, we can become like this about church. When is it going to be about me? You know, remember those songs they used to sing? They don't sing them anymore, and I wish they sang them. Or I don't like when, she does this when she sings a song, or he sings it this way, or, I like it when Mark Clark preaches, because when he preaches, he yells at me. I feel bad about myself, confess my sin. But Jeff, he's a little soft. Like, I'd rather a little more Mark. I wish it was more like this. How come it's not more like that? When is this going to be more about me? About what I want? About what my needs are? Listen, I shared a series here in January on loneliness, and it is so clear to me how lonely the people in Simcoe County are and beyond. Our country is full of lonely people. The Surgeon General of the United States has declared loneliness an epidemic. I know it's true because I meet people. We have friends here in Barrie. I meet people, and they say to me, I've heard this multiple times, well, you know what? Our oldest child is 11. And so we're going to go out on a date night because we think they're old enough to watch the other kids. And I think, you haven't had a date night in 11 years? And you know what they say? We don't know anybody to babysit. We don't have any family here. We don't know who to call. We're alone. That's what they're saying. Like, nobody walks up to you and says, I'm a lonely person. But people are alone. That's us, We don't have any family here. We moved here at 16 years ago, but we're not lonely, and we have people to babysit our kids because we have you. And you have us because we have community. We found the gift of community. And we live in a world where people are desperately alone. I think in a time when the people around us are more isolated and open than ever before, will we just make the church about us? That's great. That's great that you're lonely. That's great you don't have community. It's not my problem. I just want the church to be about me. I want the church to be about me. And we don't say it that way, right? Nobody walks up to me and says, I wish this place was really about me. Nobody says that. But we do in a way. I'll tell you, this is what I've seen in the last 4 years across our country. Church after church that's taken their welcome mat and put it away. And have said, you know what? We just need to be more about ourselves. You know what? Now, they don't say we're going to be about ourselves. They say things like, well, the culture out there, we need to be amongst people who think the way we think, people who agree with the way we agree, who believe all the things that we believe. And we want to reach people. We did that outreach event once a year. We said, hey, invite people to Christmas Eve, but the rest of the year, that's too messy. When I have conversations with my neighbors and my friends, and if they come along with me to church, and I know they've got things in their life and messy questions, and we're going to disagree on a number of things, and you know what? I'd just rather church be about us. I'd just rather church be about me. What does God say to the Son? He says his Father said to him, look, dear son, you've always stayed by me, and everything I have is yours. What does he mean here? He says, you're with me, and everything I have is yours. You don't need any more than me. For those of us who call ourselves followers of Jesus, you have Jesus. That's enough. You don't need Jesus and the music the way you like it, Jesus and the teaching the way you would prefer it. Jesus, and I wish it was that way. Jesus, and you already have everything. That's what he's saying. You have everything. But he said, you know who didn't have everything? Your brother. And he said, we had to celebrate this happy day. For your brother was dead, and he's come back to life. He was lost, but now he is found. As I shared with you last week, we started Connexus to search for and celebrate people being found by Jesus. That's the heart of God. We built this church for the 96% of Simcoe County, the 450,000 people who wouldn't find themselves in church today, who don't know the hope of Jesus, who don't know what it is to have a relationship with Jesus. And what we're saying is, and what we're reminding ourselves is, that's what we're doing every Sunday. That's what we're doing in the parking lot. That's what we're doing in the lobby. You know what? What we're doing is we're saying, man, we got to roll out the welcome mat. You know, you're here at church for the first time? Get the ring, get the robe, get the fattened calf. Okay, maybe not the fat calf, but that's a little weird. But what we're saying, welcome home. And it's home, not because of the building, but because there are people here who care. That's what this is about. It's not just a mission with a number, it's a personal thing. We're not just rolling out the welcome mat, that's not enough. We're rolling out a red carpet, is what we're doing. And that's what this whole thing is about. It's about making room in our hearts. As we're talking about making room in our hearts this week, we had that devotional that went out. Get help today at the kiosk if it kind of bumbled on you this week. Because we're making room in our hearts. The night of worship we're hosting tonight is about making room in our hearts. The prayer night we're doing next Sunday, it's all about making room in our hearts, that we would make room in our hearts for the thing that breaks God's heart. That we would push our preferences to the side and get on our knees again for people who need hope. And get in the corner of people who need love and need community and need companionship. I've said this before. People aren't going to know that Jesus is for them until they know that the people of Jesus are actually for them. It's very rare that your neighbor is walking down the street and goes, you know what? I think Jesus is for me. It's much more rare that your friend will walk down the street and go, oh, the churches, they're probably for me. I think they would say the opposite. We need people to know that Jesus is for them, and they won't know till we're for them. And the question I want to ask you today is, how can you make more room in your heart to be home to people? What does that mean, to be home to people? It means to be the kind of person who cares about people. The way you care about that server who serves you at the restaurant. The way you text that mom who was on the sidelines and say, man, you were having a hard time. I'm just checking in. The way you say to someone, listen, do you want us to babysit so that you guys can have a date night? You're the person who shows up on a hard day with a pie. And listen, we all know you didn't bake the pie, you bought it, and you got your own dish and slid it inside. We all do that. It doesn't matter. You don't have to make a meal, bring a Costco meal. It doesn't matter. There's no, people are struggling. It's not time for some kind of Etsy restaurant food competition. Just go and get something and get in the corner of someone. Doesn't matter if your house is a mess. Invite them over. Everybody knows our houses get messy. But there's mess in people's lives. And when people interact with you, does it feel like home? Does it feel like the heart of our Father? Will we join him on the porch and look and search and find and welcome people home with love and compassion? Will we make room in our hearts and in our days? The other thing we're talking about is making room in our facilities. That's a part of this whole conversation for them. Because when your friends come and they join us, we want our facilities to feel like home. And that means there's a seat here. Home isn't, we're out of seats, you're going to have to go sit in another room and watch it on the screen. That's not home. Right? We don't say, hey, I know you came over tonight, but if you go visit with me on Zoom, that'd be awesome. That's not how we do this. We want room for people. We want parking for people. We want spaces where people can meet Jesus. And that's why last week we talked about we're launching a brand new facility in Aurelia. We're going to be building out a second auditorium here in Barrie to create space because we need the space. Our student ministry has grown. We're going to create a student space. We shared about a multiplication director. And all of that is in that magazine that you heard about this morning. You can see all of that there. But it's not about buildings. It's about who's in the building and who we're inviting in the building. And this would be a place where people would meet people who reflect the heart of God and welcome them home. Now, last week we showed you about Aurelia. This week I want to give you a little more detail on what we're going to be doing in Barrie. We're opening that second worship auditorium, as I shared with you, for growth. And then we're opening a next generation student space as well here in Barrie. And we wanted to give you a bit of a glimpse of what that looks like. So check out the screen.
I'm standing here in the auditorium at our broadcast location in Barrie. We've seen rapid growth here over the last year, with an over 40% increase in attendance and 1,098 new guests here on Sundays. It's so exciting. Now, last fall, we added an 11:58 service to keep up with the growth, ensuring that your friends are able to find seating easily when they join you in any of our environments. Now, this helps make Connexus the easiest church to invite your friends. The great news is that as we've started 2024, we're growing again, up 14% in Barrie attendance over the first part of the year. We've met person after person exploring faith for the first time. God is really working in people's lives. But the auditorium here isn't the only space that we're filling. The Foundry space, where I'm standing now next door to the auditorium, is also facing growth pressures. Since Alpha launch in 2021, we've seen 517 people participate, many of them coming to faith in Jesus. This meeting space is so full, it no longer works optimally for Alpha discussion. Now, on top of that, our middle school environment, Transit, continues to grow, and our high school ministry, Inside Out, has grown by more than 3.5 times since 2020. Our student ministry is frankly just outgrowing this space. Now, these are all good challenges, and I've got something exciting to share with you. To position ourselves to keep pace with our growth, we're embarking on an ambitious expansion within our existing footprint. There are two parts to this expansion. First, we'll open a second 175 to 200 seat worship auditorium for growth. Expansion of this new space will allow us to keep pace with the growing opportunities to reach people. Here's the plan. We'll convert the Foundry student space next door to the current auditorium into a flex auditorium. And this new space will allow us to create 2 Sunday services simultaneously and provide much needed space to walk with people in ministries like Alpha in the same room midweek. This is about more than music and lights, but it's about creating more space where we can invite our friends into an accessible encounter with Jesus and to hear the timeless truth of Scripture. Now, I know that some of you are asking, what about our middle school ministry who currently meet in the Foundry space on Sunday mornings? How are we going to be for them? And this brings us to the second part of our expansion. We're going to open a brand new next generation student space. Past our current children's ministry space is an 1,800 square foot empty space that we currently lease for storage. We're going to transform that space into a larger student space. I'm here with Danelle Sewell, our student ministry director. Danelle, tell us a little bit about this space.
Jeff, I am so excited about this new space. This environment will have a warehouse vibe that includes audio, video, and lighting, as well as more space to have a ton of fun. More importantly, this dynamic space is where more youth can build a relationship with community of peers running in the same spiritual direction and be mentored by an adult small group leader who points them to Jesus. A place where faith and friendship can grow together. When I look at this space, I picture Tyler, who's on a journey after being baptized recently, or Maddie, who's in the early part of exploring her faith, or Marcus, who's been supported all year by his small group at a difficult time. This is going to be an amazing space and have a huge impact in our ministry.
Danelle, I'm so excited. I mean, as we look to the future, our commitment to our students stands at the forefront. It's in this room where faith takes root, where young hearts and minds engage with life's big questions, guided by the light of Scripture and the warmth of community. While we certainly still have much to learn, we're in a moment now where we have the opportunity to make a larger impact than ever before at Connexus. We are growing. However, the goal has never been to gather crowds of Christians, but to relentlessly focus on reaching the one who hasn't joined us yet, the one who doesn't know the hope of Jesus. Here are 2 ways you can jump on board with making this happen. First, if you're not already doing it, it's time to start earnestly praying for them. A teenager, a son, a daughter, a parent, a friend, a coworker who needs the people of Jesus to point them to the hope of Jesus. Second, when you give generously to reach our For Them goal of $2.95 million, you have the chance to turn this vision into a reality as we reach more people than ever before and spiritually invest in the next generation. It's time. It's time for us as a church to step into the gap for them, for the people who will join us looking for hope and looking for answers by ensuring that they have a great seat when they come and join us, and for the next generation to create a space that makes it possible for more students to grow a passionate faith in Jesus that lasts. The friends we haven't met, the people who you and I are praying would walk through our doors one day, the students who need hope and will be invited. It's time for us to be for them.
Yeah, it's exciting. We're really looking forward to being able to move this, open these spaces, and we're building this church at the end of the day for them. And I shared with you about that last week. That continues to be at the heart of what we're doing. Now, last week I shared with you the cost for all of that, and the cost is $2.95 million that we're raising above and beyond our regular giving over the next 20 months. And some of you have said to me, how are we going to reach that number? Like, what's that actually going to look like to get there? And so we've created a tool to kind of help you get your head around it. And it looks like a set of stairs. We'll throw it on the screen. So to hit this number, this is one of the ways that could happen. So if 225 people gave $2,500 over the next 20 months, and 75 people gave $7,500 over the next 20 months, all the way up to 15 giving $25,000, 10 giving $60,000, and so on. What happens is if we all rally together, we'll be able to get to the 2.95 number. We've done the math, and we know if everyone jumps in, we'll be able to do this. Now, it's not about equal gift. It's about equal sacrifice. It's about looking at what each of us can do where we're at, and all of it is going to make a difference. I know that for Leslie and I, what we're doing is we have a couple of cars we were supposed to replace. What we're doing is we're not going to replace them. I just did the brakes on them because we're going to have them for a while now. And we're going to hang on to those and take the money we'd saved and put it towards this. We're going to delay some home renovation projects we were going to do. I know that for some of you, we've had some people say, hey, I'm going to pick up some extra hours for the next 20 months. Some people said, hey, I'm going to liquidate some assets, sell something, get rid of stocks. Others have said, hey, I'm going to look at what I can do extra every month. For example, for $2,500, it's basically $125 a month. So for some of you, that's less than your Starbucks budget. And so that helps you kind of figure out, hey, where do I land on here? And what would it look like for me to participate? And here's what I'm asking you to do, to join the journey with us. Join the journey. And the first thing I want you to do is pray. Come to God and talk to Him about your gift. It's not between you and me. It's between you and God. Have a conversation about, hey, God, what would you have me give? You know, the way I do it, Leslie and I do it, is we kind of go, this is what we're thinking. God, what do you think about that? And we just bring it to Him. And then my encouragement is to talk, especially if you're married, you should talk. Don't make a gift without talking to your spouse, just a marriage tip there. Make sure you have a conversation about it. Talk to friends about it. Talk to your small group about it. It's such a way to grow in your generosity and really kind of get your head around things. And then we're asking for you to pledge what you can give over the next 20 months, letting us know, indicating what you can give. And what we're hoping is that the plan is that everybody will pledge by May the 5th, and we have a really special Sunday planned here on May 5th. But the pledge form is open right now at the website, connexuschurch.com/for-them. And I know that as we all rally together, we'll be able to create these spaces, Barrie expansion, Aurelia, the brand new facility, and the multiplication director. We're really excited about what's to come. Now, my friends Bob and Deb, I was talking to them, and they were sharing with us an experience they've had giving to something like this in the past. And we said, hey, would you be willing to share your story? And they said that they would, so we wanted to share that with you today. Check it out.
I'm Bob, this is my wife Deb, and we live in Midhurst. We've been going to Connexus for a couple years now.
I think we gravitated to Connexus. We really liked the idea of multiple services, multiple locations, got to know people pretty quickly. We wanted a place where it felt real and we could really be comfortable bringing people.
Connexus is a Bible teaching, Bible believing church, and that was priority number one.
They're very focused on where they're going and what they're doing, and I think they do a really good job of helping people understand what the mission is. So therefore, even when you're new, you can come and get involved, which I think is great.
We were both really blessed to grow up in Christian homes where church was important. I remember when I was young, my parents just teaching me about giving. It was about making a difference in the lives of people. When we got to Connexus, it was an opportunity for us to start to plug in and get connected in different ways. We're hosting a small group that we love.
Shout out to our peeps.
I see a couple challenges in our culture today when it comes to giving. People don't feel engaged in the giving process and even understanding maybe what the impact of their giving is. I think it's something Connexus does really, really well, helping people to see when they give, here's where it goes, here's the impact it's creating in people's lives.
A lot of people think, I have to do this, but the act of actually sacrificially giving is a relationship between you and Jesus. It's not a check the box, it is a desire, I think, that God grows in you as you start to give.
If you are obedient to God's leading, God will show up, and often in ways that you didn't expect. A number of years ago, another Christian organization that we're very connected with was doing a big fundraiser and actually came and said, could you decide what you could commit to over 3 years? And as we prayed about it and thought about it, the amount of money we felt God led us to commit was many times greater than what we would have come up with ourselves. And that's when God showed up. It was only about 3 or 4 weeks after that I had an opportunity at work. The largest sale I've had in 30 years came across my desk, and it not only funded the entire amount that we had committed to, but it actually did it in about 2/3 of the time. This ministry was able to greatly expand what they were doing, and as a result, thousands of young people, kids and teenagers, have had a chance to hear the name of Jesus, be loved by staff, and have an opportunity to decide how they want to live life based on what they're learning at camp.
One of the things that excites me about Connexus is where it's going. It is not a stagnant church. I have a real heart for youth ministry, and just the fact that they're going to build this area where it can expand and kids have a place to go and call their own, and they can bring their friends. I love that there's a new building in Aurelia. I love there's forward motion.
The leadership has done an amazing job at casting the vision for where we're going and the impact that it's going to create in the community. It's a church on mission, a church making things happen, and we're excited to see it all play out.
I think when you actually can see people's lives being changed, you lean in more. You want to become more a part of it. You're not afraid to become a part of it. It takes you from being pew sitters, taking in, to getting engaged, which for me, I'm all about that.
I would just really encourage anyone that attends Connexus to really spend some time in prayer. Ask God, God, where would you direct me? What could I give to help support the vision and the direction and the ministry that's happening here at Connexus.
Yeah. Thanks to Bob and Debbie. I'm sure for all of us, if I said, hey, I'd like to make a video about your finances, we'd all be a little bit nervous about that, right? And the fact that they would share their story is a real gift. My challenge to us today is to roll out the welcome mat. With your life, with your time, with your day. And let's roll out the welcome mat as a church and to make spaces for people to meet Jesus, to join him on the porch, and even more so, maybe to just get out there on the road and find our brothers and sisters who need him, who need hope. And this week, my challenge to you is look for people who need to know Jesus and be home to them. Don't just make this a financial journey. Make room in your heart for people to know Jesus. And today, you're going to get a puzzle piece. You get one each week, and they all kind of go together to make a coaster if you got your mug. And this one is look. Look for people who need the hope of Jesus and be home to them. Let me pray for us. God, we come to you today. And for those of us who know you, when we've known you for a long time, sometimes we forget that we were that prodigal son. That we were a lost son, a lost daughter. And for those of us who follow you, that there are seasons when we feel lost, when we make poor choices with the freedom and the gifts that you've given us. And every single time you welcome us back. And for us to experience such love and compassion and not share it, we confess the times that we've done that. That we've kept a secret, the way that you've changed our lives. That we haven't stood on the porch and looked. That we haven't joined you in the search. That we've wanted to make our faith about ourselves. Forgetting that our faith isn't about us, but it's about you. And when we learn about you and when we talk to you, we realize your heart is the people around us. Help us to be home. In your name.